So now we're going to check the second kind of unit tests for MVC applications, which is the one that will test methods like this. As you can see, this method returns a movie, a structure here with which is an instance of this class, okay? So this object here, this object movie has some properties, and we can validate if it is returning with the correct properties. So for doing that, first thing is remember when I showed this controller, I showed that we have two constructors, okay? One constructor doesn't receive any parameter and the other receives this interface, an implementation of this interface. So why we did that? When we call this controller without parameter, it will instantiate a movie repository. This movie repository is a repository that connects to the database, okay? So, like you can see here, the instantiation being made, and it connects to the database, and it searches and writes into the database. So here, we don't need, for the unit test, we don't need, and we don't want the unit test to be accessing the database. We want it to be able to test the MVC application by itself without the need of any infrastructure, okay? So for doing that, we have to create a new repository that instantiates the same interface here. But instead of connecting to the database, this new repository should have a list of the movies. So the list will be in memory, and we don't have to access anything else besides the MVC application. Okay. So I have created this implementation here. So as you can see, it implements the same interface, and it has this list, and all the operations are done to the list. So here is to list. It will list all objects. This one will find an object by the ID. This one will add a new object and things like that. So here I have a instance of this list, of this repository, which is mainly a list and methods to insert and retrieve things from this list. And we will pass it here. So the controller won't be accessing the database. And so let's pick a method to test. So for example, can be this details method here. So we will test the details method. And in the assert part, we need an ID that we'll test. So can be ID 2, no problem. And then we have to populate the list, okay? So this repository will be empty when this runs for the first time. And now I am creating a simple movie here, and I am populating some data. So I populate the name and the ID, and I add it to the repository, okay? So when I call these details, it will search for the movie with this ID, which is true, and in the repository in memory. So, and it will return the result. It will return a action result, a view model with the model here. And we want to test if it is returning the proper movie. So what we are going to do is that we are going to get the movie here. So it's a movie. The type, I'm doing a cast to the result. So we can access the data here, okay? So we can access the model by doing that. So so now, oh, sorry. So now we have this movie with the the result that will be returned in the controller, and we can check if you can put the expected result, for example, sample 2, and we can check if the movie will be returned with the proper attribute, which in this case I want to be the title. So I'll validate if it will return the proper movie by checking the title. So I can run this test and it should pass. Okay, so the test passed and that's it. Next video we'll be checking the third way, which is checking the redirect to action.